Good evening. I'd like to call the Town of Grimsby Council meeting for Monday, December 13th, 2021 to order. We'll start by playing the national anthem. So could everyone rise, please? Niagara region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawendorong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that the December 13th, 2021 council agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to delegations. We have two written submissions, one by H. Levine on Niagara Regional Transit, and the other Sherwin-Williams on Niagara Regional Transit as well. I need a mover and seconder to receive the delegations. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that the written delegations be received. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for the second delegation before we welcome Jennifer. Oh, Councillor Cadwell, you have a question?
Yeah, I do, Mayor Jordan, and thank you. I just was thinking for the public, could we read out the letters that were sent to us by the delegations, by the first two that we just approved?
Sure, I don't have them in
part of our process here for Niagara Regional Transit. I think they're very good letters, very important letters.
No. I don't have access to the letters on my screen, so the clerk's going to read them.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The first one from Sherwin-Williams. It says, Sherwin-Williams Grimsby Powder Plant has been a major employer in the town of Grimsby for 40 years, and we are proud to be part of the Grimsby community. This past year, our site has been tasked with hiring close to 35 new employees, and one of our largest challenges has been transit to our site from within the Niagara region and Stony Creek area. We have many candidates interested in our open positions. However, they do not drive, and the present transit options available does not work well within our 12 shift start time of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. A consolidated transit system that runs across Niagara and connects with Stony Creek Transit would greatly benefit not just the residents of the Niagara area, but those coming from outside the area for employment, shopping, sightseeing, and for many other reasons. We are in full support of the town of Grimsby's participation in Consolidated Niagara Transit System and look forward to the benefits it will bring not just to our business, but to all business, large and small, across the Niagara region. Niagara is beautiful and offers so much for everyone to enjoy. We need to make it more accessible to those who do not drive, both young and older. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this project. We have high praise for those who are working so diligently to make this happen. That was the first correspondence. The second one was from a resident, Howard Levine. Almost a half century ago in 1973, I was privileged to have been chosen as a consultant to devise a new public transit system for the recently amalgamated city of Cambridge in the region of Waterloo. After a detailed evaluation of the existing bus service in the former city of Galt, I undertook a thorough analysis of the potential demand in the former town of Preston and the village of Hespeler, the two other municipalities that were joined with Galt to form the new municipality. Neither Preston nor Hespeler at the time of amalgamation had any local transit service, nor had they any service for many decades. Accordingly, I recommended that a new intercommunity route be implemented to connect all three places with fairly intensive frequencies in both clockwise and counterclockwise directions. A very distinctive Cambridge transit bus would not only provide needed public transportation, but serve to unite the three former locals into the new municipal entity. The new operation commenced early in the following year and flourished until 2000. Significantly, in 2000, the region of Waterloo combined Cambridge Transit and Kitchener-Waterloo Transit to create the new regional transit provider, Grand River Transit, GRT. In 2019, GRT began operating its long light rail service that is essentially a restoration of the Grand River Electric Railway that carried passengers from 1895 to 1955. Today, GRT is one of Canada's best transit services with over 50 routes and excellent levels of ridership, a major contributor to Waterloo's economic well-being and potential. There are many similarities between Niagara and Waterloo regions, but primarily both regions comprise a number of municipalities and communities of various sizes, all historically and economically interconnected. In Niagara, the larger local entities have established and operated local bus services. St. Catharines with Thorold, Niagara Falls, Welland with Port Colborne, Lincoln, Fort Erie, and Niagara-on-the-Lake. Grimsby has never had local transit service since the Hamilton, Grimsby, and Beamsville Electric Railway ceased operation in 1931. In fact, Grimsby has a dubious distinction of being one of the largest municipalities in Canada without a fixed local transit service. The implementation of the new comprehensive public transit service throughout the region of Niagara will hopefully put an end to Grimsby's uniqueness. Today, there is a better understanding of car dependency and the environmental impact of the automobile in general. Public transit is a fundamental necessity for sustainable growth and development. To accomplish these goals, the establishment of a unified and comprehensive public transit operation within the entire Niagara region deserves your unanimous support. I urge you all to vote yes to Niagara Regional Transit.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving to our delegation, Jennifer Kerstanji is speaking on moving transit forward. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to speak a little bit about the accessibility of transit, and then just a few concerns I have with it. So the Niagara region created a priority profile on its residents with disabilities in 2020. This profile included the St. Catharines, Niagara area, but excluded Grimsby and West Lincoln. The study found that a high proportion of individuals with disabilities, at 28.9%, resided in the area. Ontario itself only having a percentage of 24%. This is approximately about 1 in 4. So 58.4% of persons with disabilities within that catchment area are employed. 20% of working age adults having one or more disabilities are approximately age 20 to 65. 38% of those adults age 65 plus have one or more disabilities. It was also noted in the study that those who identify as having a disability rate their health as poor at a rate that is 7.9 times lower than those without disabilities, rate their mental health 6.9 times lower, and are 26% less likely to meet Canada's physical activity guidelines. I could not find likewise information for the residents in Grimsby and West Lincoln. Statistics Canada 2021 has our 2 highest proportions of population at age 55 to 65 at 14.7%, and age 65 to 84 at 17.2%. So when we look at 38% of adults age 65 plus having one or more disabilities, we definitely are going to see that our numbers are probably going to be high as well. There's no doubt that affordable, accessible transit will benefit our residents with disabilities in the Niagara region, but also for Grimsby. As a caregiver to an adult with an intellectual disability, I do have personal experience using the current service. My son does not have cell service and he can only read keywords. And that might seem unusual to some people, but there's actually a high rate of illiteracy, so much so that the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal did an inquiry on the right to read. So this is something that probably would be fairly common with some of the disabled users. The NRT app is 100% not accessible for him to use. I have to book his ride from my phone remotely. It is incredibly stressful to be at work and navigate booking a ride, trying to guesstimate how busy the service will be. This actually takes half an hour of my time at work. Sometimes you can book a ride and it'll arrive in 3 minutes. Sometimes it'll be 30 minutes. So I literally have to sit on my phone on that app and see when the time frame will come, so when I can actually book that ride. I believe it would be a safety issue to pre-book and have him wait a half an hour somewhere unattended in undetermined weather. So yes, you can pre-book rides, but depending on where you are, if somebody is going to be with that person with a disability or not, they would be waiting. You have to wait at least 15 minutes before your suggested time and 15 minutes after, which means somebody could be waiting for half an hour unattended. I feel like that's a safety issue. So I'm just going to give you a brief explanation of the last time that we used the service. So my son had an appointment, so we pay for somebody to provide physical activity for my son, since there are no recreational services for people with intellectual disabilities in town. So his appointment was at 2 o'clock. So at 25 after 1, I started booking the service. I had to book right away because it was going to be a 30-minute wait for pickup time. So he was picked up at 2, which was his appointment time. He was going 1.6 miles across town. 30 minutes later, he was picked up, and then 30 minutes later, he arrived at, or 35 minutes later, he arrived at 2:35 to his appointment, which we paid for. So not only did he lose half his appointment, but he was driven around town at pickup and drop-offs for 35 minutes. Now, if you have an intellectual disability, you might not know where your drop-off point is. It's not a point-to-point service. So the only reason that he knew where to get off is because I had taken him to his destination several times. So if you have an adult with a disability that doesn't recognize where they're supposed to be going, it could get off at the wrong stop. Again, it could be another safety issue. So this evolved. So we stopped actually using the service because it ended up costing me. And then I started seeing the safety issues. So we stopped using the service. But during the night of the regional public meeting, I had an unfortunate interaction with the regional councillor who happened to be commenting on the transit amalgamation. Now, you can imagine, given the experience of somebody caregiving for somebody with a disability and having the experience I did, you're not going to think that this is the best thing in the world necessarily, the way that sometimes it is advertised. I commented on the lack of reliability and inaccessibility. I questioned the consultation within each municipality and point of view from each disability. So to me, transit in St. Catharines is completely different from transit in Grimsby. I was blocked from the account. I followed up the next day with Mayor Jordan, Regional Councillor Mr. Furtick, who's Vice Chair of the Linking Transit Committee. I explained the interaction and made a request for consultation that was done by the region's Accessibility Advisory Committee. I specifically requested if there was a voice at the table for residents with neurodiversities and intellectual disabilities. Additionally, I wanted to know if there had been a consultation in both the city and rural areas as the needs in transit differed, since the Accessibility Committee for the region had endorsed the amalgamation. So I just wanted to make sure that there was a voice at the table for every different disability, as the needs and accessibility would be different. Additionally, like I said, transit in St. Catharines and the needs for somebody with a disability in St. Catharines and using the buses is completely different from somebody in Grimsby using the NRT. The next morning, an article was published detailing another Grimsby resident that had come forward with accessibility issues a year ago. It was concerning to read that the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee that represents 6 partnering municipalities, so Grimsby, Lincoln, Pelham, West Lincoln, Niagara, and the Lake and Thorold, was never consulted. So this is supposed to be our voice, and this is, I believe, the municipality's responsibility to approach and consult with Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. They were not consulted at that time to say what our needs were. I followed up with my email inquiry, to which Councillor Furtick advised me to contact the Accessibility Committee. I refrained, as it was the chair of the committee that had blocked me. I did, however, look for the Regional Council Committee meeting videos and did not find any of the Accessibility Advisory Committee posted. There's very little information to be found through the minutes and consultation of concerns. So while I support having transit, I feel like we do not have some of the requirements in the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. I would suggest that we need an accessibility plan. We need public consultation. I realized that there was online consultation with 2,252 people from all 12 municipalities gave feedback, but really out of Niagara, that's about 0.5% of the population. If we have a large demographic of people with disabilities and we're going to go forward with this, we're already eliminating 25% of people from being able to use it. So like I said, I'm in favor. I'm afraid if accessibility concerns are not being addressed, and we're estimating about 1.3 million people coming through using the Grimsby GO station. So while I would like to ask council, like I said, I'm in support of it, but I feel like before we can go forward on it, we need to make sure we're complying with the act for legal reasons, human rights reasons, and just so that it's usable for everybody. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Jennifer. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thank you for the presentation and bringing the awareness forward, which is very important. I'm not an expert in this at all. I've just been doing quite a bit of reading, and I watched the City of St. Catharines Council meeting last week. I think it was after, I think their meeting was on the 8th, so a day or two after their meeting. And maybe our CAO here, Mr. Schlang, can help me out here, or the regional councilors. There will be a transit committee set up, I understand, as we move forward with this consolidated transit. So I think that would be a great opportunity, Jennifer, for the committee to address this before I believe it's January 1 of 2023. If this gets approved and passed, they'll be starting the new transit. So I think there's a great opportunity with the transit committee, how that's going to be set up, and that maybe regional councilors can comment and help us out on that a little bit. But thank you for your presentation. It's very important.
Thank you.
Yes, there is going to be a stakeholder committee set up, and it's going to have representatives from every group. I think there's 20 people sitting on that stakeholder committee. So there is one representative for accessibility needs. Councillor Frey.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Jennifer, thank you so much for that presentation. It's obviously very valid and very relative to what we're going to be talking about tonight. There's such a lot of interesting things in your presentation. I would suggest that maybe we ask the Matt, I think, or whoever is going to be doing the presentation later to address that in the best way they can, because I think it's important that we do that. And as the Mayor Jordan said, there is a person from the Joint Accessibility Committee that will be on that commission eventually. And I believe, see Harry there nodding his head. So maybe Harry can add to that. I don't know, but I know there's some things built into this particular commission to address that. Harry, maybe you can comment.
I think after Matt and Harry's presentation, I think there will be some things in the presentation, I'm sure, and then we can direct those questions to Matt at that time. If that's okay with you, Councillor Frey. All right, we thank you very much, Jennifer, for your presentation, and we just need a mover and seconder to receive it. Moved by Councillor Frey, second by Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Frey, second by Councillor Ritchie. Resolved that the delegation from Jennifer Korstanji be received. All in favor? And that is carried. Now we move to report CAO 21-21, moving transit forward in Niagara, creation of a consolidated transit system. I guess, Harry, you're going to lead off, and then Matt Robinson will take over. Good evening, Harry.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity. Matt and I will be doing a joint presentation. I would like to introduce Matt Robinson to you. He's the Director of the GO Implementation Office at the Niagara region. So we'll be doing this jointly. Matt will start off with the number of slides and I'll conclude it. So I pass it over to Matt right now to share the screen. Thank you, Council.
There we go. Can everybody see okay? I see Councillor Cadwell there, thumbs up. Yes, everything's good. Perfect.
Yeah, it's looking good. Welcome, Matt.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Council, for the opportunity to be here again tonight. It's a pleasure to be back here with you this evening. The purpose of tonight's presentation and the associated report is to seek Council's endorsement of the final transit governance proposal to create a single consolidated transit system for Niagara. Mr. Schlang and I will be co-presenting, and the project team certainly appreciates the tremendous leadership shown by all of our municipalities in this transit discussion. Tonight represents the culmination of years of work by many who came before us. This is a significant decision for this council and all of Niagara. All of Niagara's CAOs have invested considerable time and energy into reaching a consensus proposal they believe strikes the fairest, most reasonable approach to transit consolidation in Niagara. I also wanted to recognize Grimsby Regional Councillor Wayne Furtick, who was Vice Chair of the Linking Niagara Transit Committee, which provided unanimous support for the proposal before you. With Regional Council having passed the proposal 24-1, it is now up to Niagara's municipalities to determine if Niagara takes this next step in moving transit forward. As seen in your council package tonight, via numerous letters, there is a tremendous amount of municipal staff, political champions, and passionate community advocates who have all done the heavy lifting to get us to this decision point tonight. So to guide tonight's discussion, we'll start with what we're trying to achieve, then we'll move to why and examine the benefits of a consolidated system. We'll then dig into the how, the plan to do it. And from there, we'll examine the who, both in terms of who will shape the future decisions and govern, as well as who shaped the proposal and how it evolved considerably over time and through significant municipal and community consultation. And then lastly, Harry's going to look at when, in terms of the timelines and what the road ahead looks like for the triple majority process itself. So the vision for a single consolidated transit system in Niagara has been years, arguably decades in the making. The proposal before you seeks to create a single consolidated transit system governed by a commission that would deliver transit with a region-wide lens for all of Niagara. One that would seamlessly connect to the GO network, both bus and train, at a new Grimsby GO station. One that would ensure sustainable connectivity to all corners of Niagara and beyond. This means things such as connecting your residents to the 50 Road Costco Winona Crossing using NRT On Demand, because we know this connection is important to your town and your residents. And lastly, the vision is for a reliable, consistent, and integrated system that will transform mobility and independence and growth in Niagara for generations to come. What Council won't see in the presentation tonight is the enormous amount of studies and detail and analysis that lays out what transit in Niagara was and what it is now. That is all very well documented, and extensive links are found in the region's report. So let's look at some reasons why Niagara should integrate. The benefits of a single consolidated transit system are numerous. We've heard from your community and others over the last 24 months, as well as through countless letters of support and delegations. A common theme throughout that conversation is the benefits are very public-facing and tangible. A single unified system for all 12 municipalities will pool our resources and optimize them to maximize service for our residents. It will create equity for all communities and enable access by residents where mobility may be limited or even unavailable due to municipal or jurisdictional boundaries. Enhanced and expanded service creates what riders want from transit: reliability, consistency, and frequency. This expansion and enhanced access drives economic development, job retention, and attraction. Appendix B in your package tonight has testimonials from employers like Sherwin-Williams, business advocates like the Grimsby Chamber of Commerce, and employee advocates like the Employment Health Center. Grimsby's economic development strategy also indicates a top factor in ensuring business retention is better transit. Only under one system can we have a single $3 fare. That means $3 wherever you go, wherever you live in Niagara. That means seamless transfers, and the cost of getting to, say, the St. Catharines Hospital or to a doctor in Niagara Falls will be half the $6 it costs now. Environmental benefits are a strategic priority of Grimsby Council, and the green benefits to transit are very well documented. The move to innovative, entirely greener transit is only achieved as a single agency. We cannot afford the infrastructure and capital to go it alone to fund greener fleets. A single system brings enormous benefits to post-secondary students, but also high school and elementary students, who will gain more freedom and independence for part-time jobs. Getting our next generation comfortable and reliant on transit is a key driver in youth retention and system growth. A single transit system will also enable equity in mobility and access, supporting and enabling our most vulnerable residents to have the freedom and access to services they deserve, which creates a more inclusive and livable community. You've read those testimonials in your package from community groups like GBF, who will no longer need to rely on taxi services for food pickups and medical appointments. It's only through the creation of a single transit agency for all of Niagara that these outcomes can be fully and successfully achieved. So with enormous benefits in a single transit system, how do we get there? The Niagara Transit Governance Study recommended the full commission model as the optimal governance structure for Niagara. And this was endorsed by the municipalities as part of the Round 1 roadshow early on in 2021. This model will bring the right amount of autonomy and flexibility to allow transit in Niagara to reach its full potential. Based on extensive consultation and listening to significant input from our municipal partners, the commission would be established with a transitional board of 15 elected officials, with each of your NRT on-demand peers also having dedicated seats on the board. This means rural municipalities will have similar interests represented as the system grows and gives you sustained and balanced representation. Supporting the commission an advisory board of 20 public representatives from diverse sectors would also provide insight into the needs and views of the community, bringing key perspectives from accessibility advocates, post-secondary institutions, business, and healthcare. So Grimsby will be represented on the new transit board in multiple ways: a voting seat on the board, which is either a municipal or regional councillor, similar peer municipalities with a rural lens and seats, a citizen choice for the advisory board, and sector representatives, as well as noted in the 20 public advisory member committee. The service standards were developed to ensure municipalities knew how their services will grow over time. As a first priority, the Commission will standardize operating hours. This was seen as a key driver to transit growth and increased ridership through consistency and reliability over the first 2 years. From there, focus would pivot to combining specialized and on-demand services. This is where significant efficiencies can be found, where currently jurisdictional boundaries prohibit efficient ride-sharing, customer pickups, and optimal routing from occurring. Combining these two services enables a significant amount of capacity to be added to the system if it operates as a single integrated agency. It's important to note here that the current and very popular NRT on-demand system serving Grimsby will continue to do so as the Commission assumes operational control on January 1st, 2023. The on-demand model is seen as a very effective, efficient, and highly successful model for Grimsby and rural Niagara. Grimsby will see the same NRT on-demand, only with better service hours and a future fare reduction. Additionally, local effective transit connections are a critical prerequisite in order to see GO Train expansion occur. Integrated transit has long been the key to ensuring the province understands Niagara is ready. The service plan for NRT on demand enables enhanced levels of service to meet this GO service expansion. And the Commission will have the resources to ensure that not only will the number of vehicles grow to meet future demand, but also support future GO Train connections. Funding the new Commission is a new user pay principle based on transit service hours in each community. Both current and future local transit costs will be directly allocated for services in each community. Using 12 special levies, one for each municipality, services delivered within a community will be allocated to that municipality's regional levy. To be clear, we're not using assessment to allocate community transit costs under the new Commission. No subsidizing big cities or your neighbors. Grimsby residents pay for Grimsby service. No big buses operating empty in your community. Only the existing intermunicipal transit costs will remain on the region-wide assessment, but all community transit uploaded from the municipalities will be allocated based on service hours. And lastly, the financial plan fully accounts for future operating and capital growth and is directly linked to the service plan. It's important to note that 2020 was used as the baseline for the Commission's budget to ensure that any lingering pandemic impacts do not affect the Commission's ability to grow as expected. Using a year other than the last pre-pandemic year would reduce the starting budget of the Commission and not set it up for success. In 2023, the current $250,000 you pay for local NRT on-demand service will come off your town budget and move onto the regional levy. This has been very transparent and clear throughout. Additionally, transit fees will be clear on residents' tax bills. The special transit levy will be split out and clearly demonstrated for residents. The 2025 costs are used for demonstrating future service enhancements and take us through phase 1 of the service enhancements. With Grimsby's NRT on-demand ridership growing exponentially and now at 25,000 rides over its first year, we know that transit demand in Grimsby is high. As you can see from the cost breakdowns, there are very specific and tangible service enhancements. With close to 3,000 more service hours budgeted in Grimsby under the new plan, council and the community will see dramatic service improvements over the first 2 years of the commission. Extended hours, this means 6 a.m. starts, which according to Sherwin-Williams could now accommodate the morning shifts, and the addition of Sundays and holidays. These are very specific things your residents will see from their transit and from their investments. And with that, I will pass it to Mr. Schlang to take it from here in terms of consultation.
And I'll just, the first 5 slides that I'll present I'll go through them quickly, just some of the consultation. As was mentioned, the region conducted a survey, and what was impressive here is how many Grimsby residents responded as a percentage of the total. We were the 4th highest respondent. And again, there, 82% of the governance strategy support, 85% on the service strategy, and almost 80% on the financial strategy. And again, we always knew St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Welland would have high respondents, but Grimsby is the 4th to show just how much transit means to Grimsby residents. We also looked at, as Matt had said, significant consultation. The why integrate came from many of these consultations. When you look at the makeup of the board, as well as the advisory committee, a lot of that was input from the various groups. And what Matt didn't cover extensively there on the advisory of 20, there's 2 accessibility members on that citizen advisory group. So there's 2 members there because we recognized how important that was. When we look at the cluster of respondents, I attached Appendix B to the report, but I'm sure, it was a very extensive report. So I just wanted to cover some of the clusters of people that have been supporting this. The Poverty Reduction Network sent a letter talking about how transit helps with prosperity and gets people a chance to move out of poverty into employment and develop that confidence level. Transit costs are the 2nd highest costs in a family outside of shelter. And if we provide those at a reasonable and reliable rate, it gives an opportunity for those to have, employment opportunities, health opportunities, as well as education. The Niagara Injured Workers, the Grimsby Benevolent Fund commented, the YWCA of Niagara Region commented as well. So there was a number of activities, the business side, the Grimsby Chamber of Commerce, the Niagara Chamber of Commerce, all commented. When I wanted to pull some specific quotes from these sessions, the chair, the Grimsby Benevolent Fund talked about, this would provide better lives for everyone in Grimsby that is affected. They've been providing taxi services. They feel that if a reliable transit service could eliminate that. We talk about mental health services. Pasto Mental Health commented on this, so we support in our community. The businesses, Sherwin-Williams, when they were participating in the business retention and expansion, they gave examples of how they tried to recruit top talent from various municipalities around Niagara that couldn't afford a car, but we didn't have a transit system that would get them there in time for their shifts. So they stressed how important transit is to the growth of their business and retention in Grimsby. And the education front, there was a delegation both in St. Catharines and at the region from the Niagara College student president. That was fantastic. She showed how the dysfunctional systems that some students had to plan about 4 hours in their day to get to the Niagara College campus in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And that was just amazing. The Brock University president talked about opportunities for Niagara students that graduate that are covering with student debts, the ability that they can't afford a car to get transit to go to possible employment opportunities. The Grimsby Chamber of Commerce has been very supportive, demonstrating the need for public transit. And again, they were part of our business retention and expansion team that said transit is a key enabler for prosperity in the employee side of Grimsby. When we look at, our residents, first of all, I want to praise council in 2020 budget that made a significant investment in the first transit service in Grimsby, although I learned today we had one in 1931. But, if you look at 25,000 rides, in a year period, that's been amazing. We are representing at least 60% of the ridership in the NRT demand. And what's really unique about that is those other municipalities already had transit systems prior to 2020. So we started from level 0 in 2020, and really the uptake has just been amazing. If you look at 704 rides in September of 2020 to 2,500 rides this past month. And again, when we look at council priorities, the responsible development, to have proper transit allows our planning to plan better, plan our city better, more walkable communities, promote the active transportation as part of the development. On the environment, we know that 85% of greenhouse gas emissions are from surface transportation. The more we can eliminate that will really help in the environment. We've heard a lot about business retention, growth, and attraction from the university, from the college, from Sherwin-Williams, from our chamber, of how important transit is to that. And then you look at community amenities, getting our residents to the libraries, getting them to the recreation facilities, getting them to support for mental health, getting them to support for, going to hospitals. When Hotel Du Schaefer and the Niagara Health System presented their delegation, I did see a lot of potential employees that go from Grimsby to those sites. I did see patients going to those sites. So even though we're linked to HHS, there is a linkage back to our health system in Niagara as well. When I look at next steps, the triple majority, we're here today with Grimsby. As you know, on November 25th, Niagara Regional Council supported this, Fort Erie supported, Niagara Falls, St. Catharines. And we're today with Grimsby, Port Colborne this evening. And there's really 3 components to the triple majority. One is that the Niagara region approve it, which they've done. Is those that approve it, the electorate above 50%. And I think we're very close if we have not passed that yet. So then the third criteria is 7 of the 12 municipalities need to approve this. And then we have the triple majority. When we look at assumption of servants, Matt mentioned why integrate. I'm not going to get into all of those components, but really we would start on January 1st, 2023. As Matt mentioned, NRT on demand, our current service will be provided on January 2023. Our residents like it. There's improvements that are needed that I'm sure will be made by the commission. NRT demand is here to stay in January 2023. And the last slide, the reason why many of the corporate leadership team is on Zoom today. All of the leadership team from our economic development, our planners, our public works, Sarah Sweeney and our community services support integrated transit. This is a joint recommendation by all of us at CLT to move forward with this. This has an intergenerational impact. Your decision today has an impact on decades to come in the future. And it's very historic, and we promote it as your corporate leadership team. So in that, from the report, the recommendation is as follows, and Matt and here are willing to take any questions. Thank you very much, Council, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Harry, for your presentation. I see we have questions from Council. Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. I have a couple comments to make about this. I just want to preface saying that I'm not saying that there won't be any benefit to having a region-wide transit system. I know we'll get rides until 11 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. and maybe some rides at 6 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. But what I'm worried about is the cost. And for full disclosure, I'm a member of the board of directors at the Employment Help Center, and I talked to the executive director there about the letter that he wrote, and he does support, and an Employment Help Center would support a transit system, but he understands, and he told me that we have to weigh this against our budget and our costs, and it's easy for outside boards and things, even residents, to support, yeah, transit is great, it is, but we as our councillors and as our representatives have to look more in depth to the costs of it. And these same residents who support it at the end of the year may say, how come my taxes went up? And then we have to answer that. And so I don't want to say that the residents aren't able to make decisions, but sometimes it's easy to support a concept without without playing the tape all the way to the end. And one of the things I'm noticing about this is that we're going to get hours of service, and I think we're going to get hours of service that are more based on cities getting to and from Grimsby to the GO station than we are for the Grimsby residents needing service. So I think there's going to be, I know that they've already stated that the GO train requires a unified transit across Niagara. And with that, I think that there's going to be a lot of people from Niagara Falls and from the larger municipalities that by default, they kind of have to travel through Grimsby to get to the GO station. And so we're not going to be able to say, thank you, but no thanks. We don't need the extra hours of service. I think we're going to get as many buses or cars or things as required to get as many people. And I think Jennifer Christengi, thanks for your presentation, Jen, mentioned 1.3 million people are going to travel through that GO station. And that's a lot. And they're all going to come to Grimsby. And any that take the transit are going to come on our service hours. And we're not going to pay by our assessment, which is high compared to the rest of the region. They've switched it to service hours. But I really think that one big thing with regards to this transit commission is getting people to and from the GO station. And we're going to end up paying for some of that. And I think that maybe the burden should be on the municipalities to get their residents where they need to go. We're already here. We pay more money to live in Grimsby because of the geography where we live. It's closer to Toronto. It's closer to Burlington. It's closer to the GO station. We pay $100,000, $200,000 more for our homes to live here. And then we're going to pay more taxes for people to get here so that they can get to the places that we're already paying to live closer to. I'm kind of getting off. I had some notes here, but so like I said, I think the hours will be extended so that Niagara Falls and St. Catharines can get to and from Grimsby for those late night or early morning trains. I don't know how many people in Grimsby need to get to the grocery store or the doctor's office at 11 o'clock. It's a convenience, and it's a great convenience. I have some cousins who live in town that sometimes go downtown to watch like a sports game, and they don't end until 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the NRT closes at 10, and they can't get home, and their wives are at home with kids. They can't leave the house to come pick them up, so they got to have one DD. And it's like, this eliminates that. It creates some convenience, but at what cost? So I've been talking to some other counselors, including in Lincoln, and we've been looking at how this is going to pan out with the rest of the municipalities. I know that St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and Fort Erie have already said yes. And I know that Welland has said no. And I think that says something. We have one of the municipalities with a larger transit service that says, no, they don't want this. And so I don't know about Waynfleet and West Lincoln, but I think that they're probably going to say no too, the smaller municipalities. And so I know my time is up. Give me one more minute. I just want to finish. Tonight, we're going to be making a decision. There's already 3 municipalities who have said no. 6 municipalities saying no would end this transit commission. Grimsby, Lincoln, and Pelham are already engaged with West Lincoln in a Niagara regional transit system. It's been running well. We're only a year into this, and we're going to dive in to this transit commission. I think it's going to be a high cost. We're going to lose our autonomy, and I'm just going to pass. Thanks.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I didn't know whether Matt or Jeff wanted to respond to Councillor Sharp on that, because I had similar questions. I've been through the numbers here, and it makes sense to go down the route that you're talking about here. But I just want to understand, if we move over to this model, we still get our transit on demand, and we have the consolidated transit system. Is that correct, Matt? I think that's correct. It's pretty much in the report here.
Through you, Chair, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councillor. NRT on demand, or the on demand model, will prevail, whether that's on January 1st or beyond. You will have on demand transit servicing rural Niagara well into the future. It has proven to be highly successful.
Okay, I like the idea that we've got this potential hybrid in place. Now, in terms of cost, the $250,000 that we spend now, which comes out of the local levy, will now, you say, move into the regional levy, along with the 1.5 million that which we already, I guess we already pay in some way or other through the levy. But when we move over entirely to the region, and the region does the assessment, is that $250,000 included in that 1.7, Matt, or is that?
Yes, sir.
Extra?
Yes, Councillor.
Okay, so it is included in there. So we don't have to pay an extra $250,000 to get the on demand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the town of Grimsby budget as of January 1st, 2023, will no longer pay for any transit whatsoever.
Okay, and we'll have our hybrid model as well. Yes, sir. Okay, let me move on from there. On the governance side, can I talk about the governance side for a sec? I'm all over the place here, Matt. So I'm just going through my notes here. On the governance side, let me just grab my sheet here. When we get to the Public Advisory Committee, which is in 2023, I guess that's when that'll kick in. Between now and then, the 15 elected official representatives that are listed here in your presentation will make the decision as to who's going to be serving on that Public Advisory Committee. Is that correct or not?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, recommendations will be put forward by various councils. There will be a process for regional council in early 2022 to determine the composition of both the board composition as well as the advisory board recommended names.
Okay, because when I read this here, it says there will be 12 Niagara residents. Okay, I guess each municipality get to pick their own resident. Is that the way it works, or do we have to supply a list of names with credentials?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe to clarify, take a step back here for you, Councillor. If I don't have the slide, I won't share my screen again. But if I go back to that governance slide, there is Council, Grimsby Council, if this passes in Q1 2022, will be asked to supply the regional council with one, your name of your board representative, whether a municipal or regional councillor. Two, your citizen appointee, your council's citizen appointee on the advisory panel, and then any other recommended community organizations or individuals who would be then brought forward as part of those additional sector specific, whether it's accessibility, whether it's business, and what have you. So one local councillor or regional councillor to vote on the board, and one citizen appointee to populate the advisory panel, and then any other recommended names, whether you're chamber president, whether you're accessibility advisory chair, those types of names would come also from your council as recommendations to regional council to ratify both of those bodies.
Okay, following on from that, do we as a council have the opportunity to recommend, let's say, for example, I noticed that there's a senior issues stakeholder, there's a youth issues stakeholder, there is a, let's take those two. So can we submit potential candidates for those positions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's my question. Don't have to elaborate any more than that. And the other thing is, it says here, a member representing Niagara's Chamber of Commerce. So does each Chamber of Commerce within each municipality, if they have them, can they also recommend, or is it automatic we can actually submit a name of a person from each Chamber of Commerce?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, in the case of chambers of commerce, it would likely be put to the chambers to determine, because there's a number of chambers that exist,
Right.
who would be representing the Chamber of Commerce. Maybe that's an annual rotation among the chambers to bring those issues forward. Perhaps that's a discussion to be had with the chambers once that advisory panel is constituted in the new year.
Okay, no, I guess my point was we do get an opportunity here to have another representative from Grimsby through that particular process in the chambers.
That is possible, yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I just want to be clear that we don't have a kind of a one-sided system here where most of the advisory committee is coming from the larger centers and they kind of sway the vote with their way and we kind of lose out. What you're saying is that any of those numbers can be from Grimsby, and that's yeah, okay, that's good. I'm just curious about the Hamilton connection. I would suggest probably that 75% of the movement of people out of Grimsby go towards the west, towards Hamilton. So we have to ensure there's going to be a connection to Hamilton, so that anyone who wants to ride all the way through can pick up the system in Hamilton and continue. So I don't see anything written in here, but I heard you mention it earlier. Is there going to be something put in place for that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yes, we are actively working with HSR in the city of Hamilton in the current risk assessment right now to determine what HSR needs from Niagara Region in order to make those specific connections to that transfer point at the Costco at 50 Road.
Okay. Thank you for that. So let me just see it. Bear with me a sec. Okay, but let me leave it at that and give someone else a chance to talk. I can come back for a second time around. Thanks, Matt. That answers most of my questions.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. And I think Councillor Frake touched on the one that I was going to ask, one of my questions, which was the Hamilton connection. And I appreciate that you're working on that, Matt. I hope that we come up with an amiable solution in the near future, and it doesn't become a prolonged discussion with HSR. I hope that those are fruitful. I think that when we look at the funding model again, and I think, when we talk about the impact on the taxpayer, and yes, we need to be very cognizant of the cost. Right now, although our levy hit is $250,000, we have to be aware that we are contributing through the region's portion of our tax bills, that 1.25 million as well, which comprises something like 60% or of our tax bill. Close, I don't know. It's a higher percentage anyway of our tax bill is the regional charges that we will see. So yes, there is an impact on there. It will come off our levy. It'll go onto the regional levy. And sort of be absorbed into that. But I think it's important for people to know that Niagara Region Transit on Demand doesn't cost $250,000. It costs $1.5 million to operate it right now. And that's what we're basically paying for the service. And should we choose to even consider looking at an option where, and I mean, it crossed my mind too, hey, can we talk to our neighbors and try to do our own little thing? That would be a hit on the local levy and our tax bills directly of $800,000 to $1 million or more directly on the Grimsby taxpayer levy. 1 or 2% more taxes higher every year, just to provide it locally, the same level of service or a little bit of enhanced service we have now. So this, we are getting the combined benefit of reaching across all the borders, providing equitable service for everyone, providing those who don't have the ability to have their own transportation to have access to get to things that are important. It's so important that everyone have that ability to get around the community and get the services they need. And I just feel that's just a key, just really, really important to me. Now, there's just a quick question about the committees. So I'm glad too that we will have some ongoing involvement in how the committees are structured and a voice there. And I think that as long as we have representation from each of the smaller West communities that have Niagara Region Transit on Demand, when we talk about our voice on the governance model, it's not just going to be Grimsby's voice, it's going to be the other little communities that all use the NRT on demand. So we basically have our partners there that we can talk to when we want to have a stronger voice at the table to say, these are concerns or these are positives that we have. Matt, can you just clarify when we talk about the Transitional Transit Commission Board, we're going to be recommending one member of elected officials. And then when we move into the advisory committee in 2023, we'll be having more contributions about resident members. Is that an annual appointment? Because we're going to have an election coming up in 2022. So how are we doing that with the names that we put forward now? And how will that happen for future years? Are we able to modify our representative? What's the term going to be? I think as Councillor Frank mentioned, it's really important that we have that input and do our own due diligence and process to reach out to our community to ask who may be interested in representing and what skill sets they bring. So we are bringing the residents with the strongest skill sets to this committee. Can you just help me understand the timing and how that will happen, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bothwell. With regard to the term of council, given the runway we have now with less than a year remaining before the end of the term, the new board will be constituted likely in Q2 of next year and will help to lead the transition process through to the assumption of service in January 2023. So what we envision being, and what is in the transfer agreement, is that the members, the board would remain until the next municipal election, so 2026. What we will do in early 2022, and I don't want to get ahead of myself with process here, and my clerk would remind me that there is a process in place here with regard to those appointments. But what we would envision was that that member would serve for the duration of what would essentially be 4.5 years, so the next term of council. However, if that particular councillor doesn't return, that's where my clerk is going to have to lay out what that process looks like. So to your point about reviewing, we don't look to review the member every year, but there may be a process that the regional clerk puts in place to ensure that if there is a disruption given the pending November election next year, and that member may not return to their position at their local council and hence as a transit board member, whether or not they A, remain, or B, that goes back to the municipality to reappoint someone for the entirety of that 2022 through 2026 council term. So the intention is that that person remains for the 4.5 years, but the regional clerk will lay out a process by which, if that person does not return, what does that look like for the local municipalities in terms of a replacement?
Perfect. And just one last, thank you, Matt. One last quick question. The report notes that a key prerequisite for Niagara getting all-day GO service, including a new Grimsby GO station, is that the town has an integrated transit system that moves people across the region. Are we at any risk of losing the GO train coming to Grimsby if this governance model does not pass?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I can say that I have had extensive conversations with both Metrolinx and the Ministry of Transportation. MTO sends an email, and I'm getting a little off track here, but I'll say it nevertheless. MTO has sent me an email after every council vote thus far. They are tracking this very closely. I don't want to put an ultimatum there to your, maybe directly to your question, but I will say that the province, both Metrolinx and MTO, have been tracking the progress on Niagara's consolidation very closely.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Matt, for your presentation. Very enlightening, very good presentation. And thank you, Mr. Schlang, too, for also your presentation. Just got a couple of questions. I'm not going to get too in depth because I have been following this very closely. I just want to quick reminder of the past, and I'm not going to, I know some people say, oh, he always talks about the past, but there was things that were done in the past. And one of them was we did have a transit committee in the last term for Grimsby. During that time, Lincoln went ahead with ULink, and they had their own transit within Lincoln. But the conversation we had back during the last term with the transit committee, and then with Mr. Seaman back in the day, transit in Grimsby they were looking at over $1 million for Grimsby to run their own transit system, which was, in my mind, was just not doable. So here now we have an opportunity working with the Niagara region to be supported by the whole region for the residents of Grimsby with this transit plan. And I think it's a great plan. Matt, just a couple things for you, and then I'll have a question for Harry. With regards to your study, I really like how you've looked at other regional transits and Durham, Waterloo/Kitchener. So how much of the research was done, how they are operating, and if you could just give me a bit of a Coles Notes version answer on that one, Matt. How much did you look into other regional transits?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cadwell, that was part of the original Niagara Transit Governance Study. We did what we called a peer jurisdictional review, and we looked at all of our peer regional jurisdictions. We looked at Hamilton, Windsor, Edmonton, all for how their systems grew, the level of investment that they realized, the amount of growth realized, and subsequently the model that they used. And really that peer jurisdictional review got us to the model of a commission that really is where we landed today. When the consultants did the original study, there was 8 different organizations, municipalities that were reviewed, and a number of lenses, financial model, service plan, board composition, the model, the structure that was used, the routing, all of those things were looked at in comparison to our other peers.
Great to hear, Matt. Thank you. And just one other question to you, Matt. With regards to the committee that we will be striking, is our numbers of representation similar? I guess it must be population based in every different region, obviously. But are we at somewhat? Were you looking at how their committees were set up a little bit too, Matt?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cadwell, yes, we looked at a number of different governance models, all the way from a smaller board of fully public members, all the way to the current membership, which is 3 St. Catharines, 2 Niagara Falls, and 1 for the remaining municipalities in Niagara. That really was reflective of what we heard from municipalities. A lot of the smaller rural municipalities wanted a seat at the table to ensure that the service plan, which was clearly laid out in the proposal, and the financial model were as they were going forward, and to be able to have a seat at the table as that service plan was realized over the first 3 years. So that's how we evolved to where we are today, where there was more direct representation for elected officials to guide the service plan into implementation over the early years and provide each and every municipality with at least one voice at the table to ensure that that happens.
That sounds great, Matt. Thank you. Obviously, Regional Transit, you folks really did your homework on this too, and very much appreciated as we're moving forward. The last question I do have for Harry, gas tax. Harry, will we be able to use our gas tax funding to put towards our transit with this transit model?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Kettle. Remember, there's 2 types of gas taxes: the federal, yep, which we're getting, for our infrastructure. So that's not the provincial gas tax is based on transit. Since we have never run transit, and even this last year, Niagara Region's running transit for us, they get the provincial gas tax, and that was in my report. It's about $200K.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah. Thanks, Harry. Just was looking for clarification on that. A couple other questions were brought up by other councillors, so thank you very much. Look forward to the vote.
Councillor Frick.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. A couple of loose ends here. Matt, with the GO train coming to Grimsby, what's going to happen first? The GO train is going to be introduced first, or the new consolidated transit system? How do you think that's going to work? Which will happen first?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. If I had that crystal ball, I'd love to be able to tell you the answer to that one. Given the title of my office and my team, we're hopeful that there is a provincial announcement with an election in June of next year. We are hopeful that there is some good news coming out of the province, which would align very nicely with the potential for a newly constituted transit commission in Niagara. And presumably and hopefully those two things run in parallel, where a new station would be established, perhaps as a new commission takes control of a new transit system.
Thank you. The other thing, once the GO train does happen in Grimsby, and I'm assuming, of course, it will, we're going to get riders coming from both east and west. And I would think that there's going to be riders for that GO train coming from the eastern side of Hamilton. I'm guessing. I would think so. Why would they go to the Hamilton station where they could come to the Grimsby station? I'm sure there's going to be traffic coming that way, as well as traffic coming from east of Grimsby, Niagara Falls, and so on and so forth, coming to that, or Vineland, Beamsville, et cetera, coming to Grimsby to catch the GO train. I'm assuming that you've built into that, or they will build into their model, lots of parking for that potential. As Ms. Cortange said earlier, that I don't know where she got the number from, 1.3 million riders is the potential for the GO train. But also there's the other factor of traffic coming through Grimsby, either both sides. I'm hoping we'll have this conversation with Karen Ryle at some point in time, that we're going to make sure that the road system going to and from that station is really effective and really efficient and really built to accommodate the extra traffic flow. So I just want to make a comment there, and hopefully she's hearing me. The other thing is, I heard Councillor Sharp say earlier that Welland has turned this down. Is that true, and why?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, Welland voted last Thursday. They voted in favor. They voted with conditions. So if I review the motion here, the City of Welland Council supports the future state of interregional transit and the consolidation of Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls transit systems. And they have a caveat that other things need to be addressed. So that is the state of the motion that passed in Welland last Thursday.
Okay, but so they basically have agreed with this particular consolidated model. Do you see any difficulty with overcoming their caveats?
I don't, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't see issue with the go forward process. There will be transfer agreements that will be signed between those municipalities with transit assets, and Welland will have an opportunity to discuss that upload and that process at the appropriate time.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, because I don't want the general public to think that they downright just turned us down or turned you down. So that's good. Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it. I'm done. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered, but what I would like to know, for the sake of transparency, because I think it gets a little confusing, is one, what are the incremental costs to residents for this transit? And the reason I ask is when you say it's coming off our levy, it'll be all under the regional levy. I don't think residents really care when they pay their taxes where their money is going, whether it's going to the town or going to the region. It's still money out of their pocket. So I'd just like to know the sort of absolute costing that we're anticipating over the next 3 years for like what we're paying now versus what we'll pay next year and the year after.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, if I refer back to slide 12 in the presentation, the current 2020 model is at a rolled up cost, that's local levy and regional levy of 1.5 million. That moves to 1.7 million, 200,000 between 2020 and 2023. And that includes all of the inflationary costs from 2020 to 2023, as well as the commencement of the capital reserve strategy. And then by 2025, which is when we have the service enhancements complete, we are at 2.1 million, which is an additional 400,000. And that includes 3,000 more hours in Grimsby, the addition of Sunday and holiday service, inflationary costs to 2025, and an additional transfer to reserve for capital.
Okay, so when you're talking about these capital reserves, how much is that going to cost us?
By 2023, that is 0.3 million. And by 2025, that's 0.8 million. And that is for fleet replacement and fleet acquisition for NRT On Demand.
Okay, so, and that's just for Grimsby.
Those numbers that I referenced just now are specific to the Grimsby costs.
Okay, so basically our costs go from our current rate of 1.5 to in 2025, 2.9.
2.1, Councillor.
Yes, but then there's the 800 that we have to put aside for.
Those are included, Councillor.
Oh, they're included. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to be clear. Okay, so, all right. And are you anticipating, and this might be kind of a stretch, but with our anticipated growth, do you think that we'll be able to absorb that within our tax structure?
I'm not sure what you mean by the question, Councillor.
Well, as more residents come, they start paying taxes. So, you know, our overall amount of income will increase. Like, what I'm saying is, will it be offset by an increase in population in Grimsby who are paying taxes?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I would argue that it's more on the revenue side. As ridership grows, the costs are fixed. The service hours are fixed. The more people ride, the more revenue offsets the cost, the less the service costs going forward. The less there is a need for incremental increases as the revenue cost ratio increases because of ridership.
So that if you're saying, let's say everybody in Grimsby goes crazy on NRT, that we could actually be not having to pay any additional money. I mean, just theoretically, any money through taxes if we have the ridership.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, if our revenue cost ratio was that high, that is theoretically a scenario that could play out, that the cost of delivering transit lowers as a result of a higher revenue share overall.
Okay. All right. And then my last question has to do with Ms. Costanja's presentation. In your presentation, you felt very positive that we were addressing the needs of persons with disabilities. And I suspect we probably do better with persons with physical disabilities than mental disabilities. But it would seem to me that perhaps we're falling short with those that have sort of intellectual disabilities. So what can you do to address that gap? Because it's been highlighted now that while you think you're doing great, maybe on that side, maybe not so much.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vardy, with regard to the accessibility concerns, I won't speak to a specific individual or a specific case per se, but what I can say is that anyone needing an enhanced level of accommodation to use transit can apply for Niagara Specialized Transit, which is point to point. It is approved by medical professionals. It is application based. It comes into your driveway. They assist you in getting into the vehicle and they bring you point to point. So if anyone using current transit, the NRT on demand, let's say, who needs an enhanced level of accommodation beyond just what NRT on demand may provide,
Okay.
that individual can apply for NST, which instead of being sort of a corner to corner or end of driveway rideshare service, is a point to point. As I said, the NST vehicle pulls into your driveway. The driver assists you getting into the vehicle. That may be more appropriate, depending on the opinion of medical professionals, if you need that higher level of accommodation to use public transit.
Okay, so maybe it's a matter of making that more widely known, that option is available.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely something that we can take away on our end to ensure that transit is, though those services exist, that they are better promoted and promoted as available to accommodate everyone within the community.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. That's it for me.
Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just want to run through a little bit of chronology of our previous approvals and not approvals when we were kind of starting this transit journey. In 2019, this council turned down transit at $500,000 in our budget of 2019. And I think that was the right decision to make. $500,000 was too much to pay for transit in the town of Grimsby. And then in 2020, we approved transit through NRT at $250,000 from our levy. And I think that was the right decision. I think that we said no when it was too much money, and we said yes when it was $250,000 on the levy. And so in 2022, they proposed the same, $250,000 on the levy. It'll just be taken from a different pot another way, but it's still one taxpayer in Grimsby. And by 2023, which is like next year, 365 days from now, it'll increase by $200,000. That's almost double. Puts us at $450,000 equivalent to what we were paying $250,000 before and to what we said no to at $500,000. When we say yes tonight, by next year, 365 days, 52 weeks from now, our cost is $450,000, not $250,000. 2 more years following, by 2025, it will increase another $410,000. $450,000 plus $410,000 puts us at $860,000 by 2025. And so it'll be charged through the regional taxes. I don't know exactly how it'll be charged. It's a separate levy. It's massive. It's like triple what we're paying for transit right now, more than triple, and more than triple by $100,000. So when I talk about these costs, we have been in this transit thing since 2020. We delayed it until August or something of 2020. We've been going for 14 months, and I think we're moving too quickly. And I'm going to remind you again, by 2025, we'll be paying equivalent to $860,000, more than triple of what we're paying right now for transit. We'll just be paying it through the region, but on the same tax bill. So I'm going to vote no to this, and I'm going to suggest that
Councillor
we
Sharp,
should think
in
long
all
and hard.
fairness, you've been buzzed and you've spoken twice and your time is up. And I think Matt and
so-
Harry will have something to say about some of your comments, just for clarification. Matt?
At your request, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the costs that were referenced, the local cost of delivering transit is in addition to the regional contribution that's made. So 1.5 in 2020, 1.7 in 2023, 2.1 in 2025. It's important to ensure that the same numbers used It's not 250,000 from 2020 to 2.1 million in 2025. So I do want to be clear in terms of the local costs that are being attributed. The inflationary costs are also attributed to Grimsby's contribution to the region-wide system, which provides all intermunicipal trips across the region.
Mayor Jordan, may I just
And
clarify?
I'm going to respond to Matt before you clarify. Just the if you take off the capital costs, which are going to be cut out, it's actually goes down to 1.3 million total overall cost. So it's actually a saving. So Councillor Sharp, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to be clear, that 1.5 million includes our current $250,000 levy.
Yes.
Okay, and then in the following year, it will be 1.7. That's $200,000 more, right?
That includes inflationary costs in contribution to the region's assessment model currently to deliver IMT, as well as a capital reserve contribution.
Okay, so the 1.5 includes the $250,000 levy, and then in 2023 we'll pay another 200,000 on top of the 1.5, which included the 250 levy. So we've moved it over to transit, but it's still 250 plus 200. Sorry, let me one more. So right now 1.5 includes our $250,000 levy, and by 2025 we will be at 2.1 million, which is $600,000 more than the 1.5. And so 1.5 includes 250 plus 610, actually, is $860,000 equivalent. So it's $600,000 more than what we're currently contributing by 2025. Can you clarify that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that also includes 3,000 more service hours to the town of Grimsby and a capital contribution for NRT on-demand fleet.
So more hours, but we pay by service hours, so our cost is going up significantly. I just was trying to get that across. I feel like that wasn't expressed clearly enough. We pay $250 now. We will pay $860 in 2025. Thanks.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thanks. I just think that we have to remember that transit is going to cost us, and we may not always recoup the total amount of what it's going to cost the taxpayer, but it's a benefit that you can't necessarily, you have to look at it that it's benefiting those who aren't as able to have the same transportation options that a lot of others have. So it's something that we know it isn't going to pay for itself. It's like developments don't always pay for themselves. Transit is something it's a benefit to the whole community that we have to look at it that way. The capital costs, I think what Matt is saying too, is when we look at NRT demand, we only have like a couple of fleet vehicles right now that are circulating. With the increased ridership and the GO coming, the demand for that capital cost, we're going to have to add to the fleet. We're going to have to replace the fleet on an asset cycle basis. All those factors are calculated into how they looked at that financial framework. And I'm sure they did extensive consultation. Should we have taken that on ourselves, we would have had all those capital costs to increase the fleet, to do the maintenance, to do the to have the garages and the annual change of the winter tires, whatever they got to do. It's something that those capital costs and that increase over the next 5 years, 4 to 5 years, are something that you have to look at when you look at asset amortizations and capital replacement. So I think that's where that value is coming in as well, and into those service hours that we know will definitely benefit the people who need those extra hours. So anyway, I'm just thinking that looking at the whole picture, to me, there's still a strong need for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. And just a further comment. We are Niagara region, that includes all of Niagara region, including Grimsby, and Niagara region felt that healthcare includes all of Niagara region, and were able to put their money where their mouth was for healthcare for our West Lincoln Memorial Hospital to make a better region, a healthier region, as well as contributions from the region to McNally House to make a better and healthier region. And a region-wide transit system will just lead to a bigger or a better and healthier and more accessible region. So I think part of it as the town of Grimsby is the fact that we are with the region, and we will get a better service and a more fulsome service if we stick with the region. And thank you, Matt, and thank you, Harry, for your presentation. Seeing no further speakers, I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Bothwell, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that report CAO 21-21 dated December 13th, 2021 be received, and that the Council of the Town of Grimsby consents to the passage of bylaw number 21-96 of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, being a bylaw to provide Niagara Region with the exclusive authority to establish, operate, and maintain a consolidated passenger transportation system for the Niagara Region. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstone,
Yes.
Councillor Frake,
Yes.
Councillor Cowell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
No.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That's carried.
Thank you again, Harry and Matt. Have a good evening.
Historic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we move to number 8, adoption of previous minutes. Need a mover and seconder. Oh, Councillor Vardy, question or comment?
Maybe I'm a little too fast off the draw, but I have an urgent notice of motion I want to put forward.
Yeah, you would do that after this,
Okay.
Councillor Vardy. So mover and seconder for the approval of the previous minutes. Councillor Frake, Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole minutes of November 15th, Council minutes of November 15th, and Special Council minutes of November 15th be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Councillor Vardy.
So thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. I've sent the motion on to Sarah Kim. I've heard a lot of comments and concerns raised by residents about duck hunting off the shore of Lake Ontario. And I did post information that I was provided by bylaw, but it seems it was not entirely correct, or at least that there may be some interpretation. I don't know, but because it has stirred such a controversy on social media with duck hunters in particular, and the serious concerns raised by residents, I think, and it seems like we seem to be attracting these duck hunters on the lake in much greater numbers than we ever had in the past. And even some, apparently some people make their business by bringing duck hunters in to the lake in front of
Councillor
Grimsby.
Vardy, if we want to discuss your notice of motion tonight, we need to have 2/3.
Okay.
So if we do have a mover and seconder for this, moved by yourself, seconder then we can vote on the 2/3 whether we want to discuss this tonight. So we have a seconder as Councillor Frake. So I just read out there. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Whereas there has been significant concerns raised by residents about offshore bird hunting off of Grimsby's Lake Ontario shoreline, be it resolved that staff take immediate action to consult all relevant authorities and post accurate information about what is and isn't allowable on the town website. Recorded vote.
Mayor Jordan, a point of order before we start, and I fully support what Councilor Vardy's trying to do, but I believe we're out of our own jurisdiction here. This is not something that we have jurisdiction or authority over. This is something that is controlled by the OPP and by the Ministry of Environment. I don't believe we have any legal authority to do anything.
Just a
Just
point
my
of
opinion.
clarification, Councillor Bain. I did some research on this today. And actually, there are several municipalities, including Toronto and Kingston, to name two, that actually do have their bylaws extending out into Lake Ontario. As a matter of fact, Toronto's bylaw, their no hunting area extends all the way to the US border.
Okay, I support it. I'm just saying, I just don't know if we have jurisdiction, that's all.
Okay, all right, I read the notice of motion, so now we have, I'll read the,
Point of clarity, Mayor Jordan.
yes?
Just curious because the comments that you did some research today and we're looking to put a motion forward that we none of us have had any prior knowledge to.
I
But
just
yet
did.
you were able to do some research today. Did you say that correctly?
Well, I just did research on actual, because I knew about the, I was
the
following. I did not know about the motion. I knew about the situation with hunting. It was brought to my attention that people were hunting in Lake Ontario. And so I called a couple people in Toronto, and then I went online and looked at Kingston and found out that it actually did extend into the lake in those two municipalities. So I have a mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the notice of motion on offshore bird hunting be addressed at this meeting. Recorded vote.
Councillor Boswell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
Some clarification again. This is a, excuse me, a notice of motion. Do we not have to hear it at the next meeting unless we rule on?
That's what we're voting. We're voting
On the
to
rules of procedure?
hear it tonight.
Okay, all right. All right. So
If
no.
if I could just interject, this motion only pertains to posting correct information about what is and isn't allowable on the website so that our residents are informed. It's not a bylaw to outlaw duck hunting or anything like that. It's just to make sure that the correct information is available to the public because there's some confusion.
So are we voting on the motion or are we voting on removing the rules of procedure so we can vote on the motion?
yes, we're voting on removing the rules of procedure, so it would require 2/3 right now.
Right, and then we can talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, so my answer was no, and it's still no. Thank you.
Councillor Frake,
Yes.
Councillor Cowell,
Nope.
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
No.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
that's defeated.
Are you sure?
Requires 2/3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it-
2/3,
it's-
so it was 5-4, yeah. So this will be addressed at the next meeting of December 20th.
It's 5 out of 8, which is only 62.5.
That's very disappointing. That
It's disappointing how many people knew about the motion before and we have no information.
Wow. That's your opinion.
That
I
nobody
got an
knows
email
about
from
the-
some residents.
I just wrote
Councillor
the
Ripley, there were some
motion now.
residents who emailed me.
All right, need a mover and seconder for bylaws. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 21-89 to 2191 inclusive, and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for second and third reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 21-89 to 21-91 inclusive read a first time, now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Are there any announcements? Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. And some of these I was going to mention at our last meeting before the power outage. I just want to thank all those who supported Movember. It was again, another great campaign to support prostate cancer. And I supported a couple gentlemen who had some very unique and interesting mustaches and that. So once again, just to the public, thank you very much for that support. The other thing I wanted to say, I meant to say it again last meeting. Great news. This is a little bit, maybe it's about a month old roughly, but Grimsby secondary football team won their championship. They beat Governor Simcoe. Did I say Governor Simcoe? Yes, I did. Yeah. They beat them 10-7. Great game. Apparently it was in St. Catharines. Weather wasn't that great, but just want to pass that on to the public because I didn't see anything in the newspapers about it. So my last thing is, just give me a second here. Just going to pull up a proper notification to it. This is from Trevor Ruzel, our recreation coordinator. Grimsby Celebration of Christmas Lights contest is back. Nominate the best lights in Grimsby until December 16th at 4:30 p.m. Judging will take place December 17th to the 19th, and the top 3 homes, which will take home a $100 gift card, will be announced on December 20th. And I don't know about just with the great Christmas parade we had first Saturday in December, just driving around town, there's some really, really outstanding, awesome looking residential lights that are homes that are decorated. I just want to give a huge shout out to a street that is just to the east of me where I live, Kidd Avenue. If you're out and about shopping, whatever, at night, take a drive down Kidd Avenue because it just looks amazing with their Christmas lights. All the residents have pretty much gotten together and it looks fantastic. So really excited about the Christmas light contest. I think it's either the 13th or 14th year. The town has been doing this. So you can go online on the town's website, find the right connection there and vote for whoever you want to, who you feel is very deserving of a $100 gift card from our 3 sponsors, Century 21, Todd Fryer, the Canadian Tire, and Rona sponsorship. So great fun. Thank you.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just have one announcement. I was speaking with Matt Miller last week, and I know that the council has already received the notification of this particular event, but Matt Miller, in conjunction with the new West Niagara Secondary School and Wolverton Hall, putting on a concert. It's a jazz concert on January the 15th. And it's in the proceeds, the fundraiser will be going to the new school theater. And it sounds like a great event. Spencer McKenzie and Mile Heavens will be the entertainers. They're a jazz group. It sounds like a really good night. It's $75 a ticket. I know the council is already aware of this, but I just want to make sure the public's aware of it. It's probably published in the paper as well. But anyways, there's only 70 seats available. So I would say they're going to go fast. So grab your ticket. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. I just wanted to apologize to residents for information that I posted on my social media about duck hunting that was provided to me that may or may not have been correct. And while I've tried to correct this on a priority basis, I'm afraid that not everyone agrees with me. So hopefully when the motion comes forward in another week, that perhaps my colleagues will see the urgency about people shooting at the shore. Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you. This past week, a few of the councillors there attended a couple events. The first one, I wanted to just acknowledge the West Lincoln Fire Department. They laid one of their members to rest. And as we approach the Christmas season, it's also always a difficult time to lose a member of your family. And when you look at the fire service, that's what most people consider it that work there, is that it's their family. So I just want to let people know that, somebody should be listening. Someone's listening always. And if you're having any difficult times, to reach out, as like I said, this individual had a tragic situation. I won't mention names. And very unfortunate for the family. So I want them to know that we're thinking of them in their time of need. We also attended an event for the McNally House. The government has made an announcement for additional funding. It's great news. I hope that, I guess I'll leave it to Councillor Furtick. I believe the Niagara region might have had some additional funding there too, so I won't take that from them. But it's great to see our provincial government provide additional funding to McNally House. And last, I just wanted to say congratulations to one of our members of staff. Worked at the town of Grimsby for some time. She was a great inspiration to myself, as I'm sure to many others, and I wanted to wish her all the best. Thank you.
Councillor Furtick.
Thanks, Mayor. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank council for their vote tonight. It's been at least 20 years in the making. Having said that, you've given me the best Christmas present that I could ever want. And I want to thank each and every one of you. So may you have a healthy and a prosperous 2022. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Councillor Furtick. I just have a couple of announcements here. Yes, I was with Councillor Ritchie, Regional Councillor Furtick, and Councillor Cadwell. We attended the Mount McNally House announcement, where the provincial government funded $284,000 to McNally House, and that was top-up funding to increase end-of-life funding by 30% over the term of the provincial government. So they, I guess it was a campaign promise, and they did follow through with it. And I also attended on Saturday afternoon at Ridley College the inaugural Niagara Sledge Hockey League. It's the first sledge hockey league in Niagara, and I was happy to attend it with Jeff Thiessen, Mayor Walter Senzik of St. Catharines, Mayor Frank Campion of Welland, and a representative from Niagara Falls from the mayor's office. It was a pleasure to hand out the uniforms to the Grimsby team. And it's just so exciting that we have a sledge hockey league that Grimsby is a part of. And a special thanks to Krista Bowie and the rest of the recreation staff for being on stream with this, and thanking even Ron McLean for announcing the sledge hockey league at the hometown hockey game with the Montreal Canadiens and Vancouver Canucks on November 29th. It was just an honor to be there at Ridley College and just seeing the participants there. And in the inaugural, although it was an exhibition game, Grimsby beat St. Catharines 3-1. So it was quite exciting. And we look forward to seeing more sledge hockey. And I will update you to exact times when they do play, when the league starts up. Councillor Cadwell, I see you have something else.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just want to thank the Niagara region and Councillor Furtick for organizing a tour of the new water reservoir up on Park Road last Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. It was a, wow, what a project that is. I think it's going to hold like 17 million liters of water, which is a tremendous amount. Great project for Grimsby's water system. Councillor Vardy was also there. It was great. We got inside of the reservoir. We got to tour the whole facility. Had great conversation with the with regional staff, and yeah, it was pretty chilly up there too. But thank you very much, Councillor. And maybe as when the facility is complete, maybe there could be another one. But whatever. But that was a very educational. Great event. Really enjoyed it. And again, thank you very much. That's it.
Seeing no further announcements, the next council meeting is scheduled for December 20th, 2021, following the committee of the whole. Now we're moving into closed session. So we will be back after the closed session. So see you in a bit to the general public. Now I'll read the electronic participation form before we move into closed. Good evening, members of council. Before we begin the closed session, all members are reminded that any discussions in closed are to remain confidential as per our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Grimsby. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, and confirm that no one else is present with you, and confirm that no one else can hear this closed session. Confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet or computer for the purpose of this video conferencing only, and confirm that you are not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all the statements. Councillor Bothwell?
I understand and confirmed all the statements.
Councillor Dunsel?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Frake?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Cadwell?
I understand and confirm to all statements.
Councillor Ritchie?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Sharp?
I understand and confirm to all except the electronic devices.
Councillor Vane?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Vardy?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
And I myself, I understand and confirm to all of the statements. Need a mover and seconder to move into closed session? Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that council meet in closed session under section 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding 362 North Service Road, and section 2393.11 for the purpose of educating or training the members regarding Peacekeeping Center expansion. All in favor? We are now enclosed. Let's
Recording in progress.
All right, we're now back in open. Welcome back to the public. Just need a mover and seconder for which one? Right. Yeah. Just a mover and seconder for confidential report PA 2145. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Sharp. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Sharp. Resolved that confidential report PA 21-45 be referred to staff. All in favor? That's carried. And need a mover and seconder for the education and training session for the Peach King Center expansion. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the presentation provided to members under section 239 3.11 for the purpose of educating or training the members regarding the Peach King Center expansion be received. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 21-92 and that same be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Mover and seconder for the second and third reading of the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 2192 read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed so that the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That is carried. Meeting is adjourned. We'll see everyone on the 20th. Good night, everyone. Thank you.